Hello and welcome everyone to Copy and Paste, the clean and family-friendly Reddit reading podcast. This is the 9th episode of r/Nuclear Revenge, where I'm not sure if you noticed, but this is the 1 year anniversary of Copy and Paste. Woo! I can't believe it's been a year when it used to sound like this.
Hello and welcome everyone. This is the first episode of Copy and Paste, the clean and family-friendly Reddit reading podcast. Thank you for joining me today. Today we'll be going through r/ProRevenge, the subreddit to start this podcast on a high. Okay, let's get started.
Well, now it's at least gone a little better. Well, let's get started with this 30-minute special on ProRevenge, right back where we started. And don't forget, if you like this podcast, then it would be greatly appreciated for you to like and subscribe. Thank you for joining me. And the first post by user /throwawaynewbhacker. In March of 2009, a German game studio by the name of EA Phenomic released the beautiful game named Battleforge, and in May of that same year, it went free to play. I fell in love with it almost instantly. It's a real-time strategy trading game. Yes, you read that correctly. And the graphics, the game design, the creativity possible while deck building, the split decision with the PvP game mode, everything was just on point in this game. Over the first months, I quickly improved my skill and kept growing in this regard, playing mostly 2v2 PvP and 1v1 PvP with little PvE on the side. My game was basically split between PvE and PvP, with the only exception being that you could use the same cards/monsters in both games, and the upgrades you farmed for your cards would also be the same in both modes. However, strategies differed wildly. Suffice to say that at the tender age of 17, I had a lot of spare time on my hands, so a lot of time and effort went into honing my skills within this game. But then, as the game grew in popularity, the cheats came. Cheats enabled you to solo an expert 4-player PvE map within 10 seconds, which usually took 4 professional players. Noobs had no chance of beating an expert map. Around 30 to 60 plus minutes, the rewards were of course adequate. As a PvP player, I was not completely outraged by this, as the cheats would only work in PvE maps. But of course, it was ugly to see something like that happen to the game I loved. What made it worse is that EA Games was already greedy back then, and they had to cut down the Battleforge team. So much that they apparently couldn't handle the cheating crisis, and so cheaters ran rampant for a long time. During this time, Upgrade Stage 3 was introduced into the game. You see, up until now, you could put 2 upgraded versions onto the cards you owned. You either had to play a lot of PvP matches to earn tokens, with which you can acquire the upgrades, or you can play the PvE matches from which the upgrade dropped and hope that it drops. And also hope that you got the upgrade because there were 4 drops for up to 12 players. Suffice to say, it was quite the struggle to get all your cards fully upgraded, especially if you were playing PvP, because the upgrades were absolutely essential there, as every inch of advantage mattered a lot in this really fast-paced game. And Upgrade 3 made this fact even more significant, because a lot of the time, the U3 on a certain card would be a rather big upgrade compared to U1 and U2. You might have figured it out already, but what the above paragraph means is that now cheaters got an unfair advantage even in PvP. My tough. This was too much for me, and I set my sight on exterminating cheaters. I had already dabbled a little in hacking back then, with no major success at all. However, this time I had a drive to commit myself more, and I did. Over the following months, EA staff hadn't done anything to cheaters. I frequently dug through thousands and thousands of lines of code, and after a lot of failure and sweat, I finally emerged with a completely undetected keylogger. For those who don't know what that is, a keylogger is a program that you run on your victims' machines that registers every button they press on their keyboard. My keylogger was even programmed in a way that it gave the title of the window the user was on, to make it more coherent for me to decipher later on. An example I know what my keylogger would send to me later on would look something like this. Mozilla Firefox submit ProRevenge. And then underneath that, I hacked cheaters in a game I loved, ... Just an example. I now had the keylogger, but how was I going to get cheaters to download and click on it? After all, I was no professional hacker who finds a weakness in your system and hacks you without needing any interaction on your part. I was in essence someone who managed to adapt a lot of different code fragments into a working code that did what I needed it to do. Creativity hit, and I came up with the idea. It seemed as much obvious as genius. I disguised the keylogger as a Battleforge cheating tool. So I programmed an interface for the supposed cheating tool, spliced together a video showing off that it does in fact work, and uploaded that to YouTube. I don't know if it's still possible, but back then it was semi-easy to viewbot a video, and so I did in order to be shown above other cheating tools, or hacks. Fun fact, the account name was really stupid, something along the lines of Battleforge Hack Team, if I remember correctly. Anyway, it worked. It started off slowly with one account here and there, but after some time I successfully hacked one or more multiple wannabe cheaters every single day. It was not possible to outright delete an account with the login information. However, it was possible to send all their cards, all their gold, and all the Battleforge points, in-game currency you had to buy with real money, to my account. View a dummy account in the middle. Since EA was already hard-pressed dealing with cheats actively ruining the game, they seemingly did not have the manpower to catch hackers, because I did that for some months and never got caught. Overall, I stole in-game currency and cards worth around 1,200 euros. It was a small community, not comparable to stuff like World of Warcraft or League of Legends or what have you, otherwise I'd be rich by now. And I think it's fair to assume that this broke the will of would-be cheaters to continue playing my beloved Battleforge. That was a great start to a great episode. And now the second post by user /egnards. It's in the description. It's really confusing. I've wanted to post this tale here for a long time. I've started the post many times, walking away from the computer and giving up each time. Note that like many tales here, many trivial to the story details have been changed. What is important to note that the way my industry runs is essentially via monthly service contracts with clients. There are three major players in the story. Myself, egnards, old owner, let's call him Steve, and new owner, let's call him Kyle. Act 1. Do what you love. As an aimless teenager, I started working for a small business owned by Steve. It turns out I really enjoyed what I did, so slowly over time my life plans shifted to make sure I could continue to work for Steve for the long term. This included transferring to a local college, and because their business was predominantly run on part-time hours, making sure that any other jobs I had never conflicted with the hours I was expected to work for Steve. Steve was flawed, but overall a good boss, who, mostly, looked out for me. I certainly think, over the years, he had taken advantage of me in small ways, but looking back, I really had no complaints. The thing is, that when I started working for Steve, the business name recognition was actually directed towards Steve. Over the years, it eventually became, go to Egnards, he's the best. This got to the point where I do indeed truly believe that if I did not end up working for Steve, it's very likely his business would have been nowhere near as successful as it eventually became. As years went on, it was heavily implied that when Steve retired, the business would go to me. It was never specifically stated, but Steve did have a way about skirting around those types of issues and giving me hope. Act 2. Enter Kyle. About 3 years before COVID, Steve decided to retire and sell his business. He did indeed fulfill his promise by making a half-butt attempt to sell it to me at an unreasonable price, but it was very clear he already had another buyer in mind. Kyle owned another local business just outside our market area in the same industry. Because of the way the industry worked, there was really much, if any, overlap in potential customers, but Kyle had a very large amount of money and was willing to buy. What is important to note is that, here again, I do truly believe that if I didn't play ball and agree to work for Kyle, my role was so integral to operation at our business that there is no possible way a sale could go through. Over the course of negotiations, Kyle ended up buying the business and putting me in charge of running the day-to-day. Something I was mostly already doing, but with a few more administrative tasks tackled onto it. The thing is, my name was still the name in town, and Kyle made zero effort to ever be on location, so nobody that did business with us ever really knew who Kyle was. Act 3. Kyle's kind of a douche, and how I learned to stand up for myself. All was well for a while. Kyle would openly talk about me being the head honcho at my location, and mostly left me alone to deal with my clients in the professional and personable nature that I had learned from Steve. Things first came to a head a year before COVID, when Kyle sent me to an industry conference for 4 days. I would need to take time off from my other job, which I was fine with. At the conclusion of the conference, I put in an hour's request for the hours I spent at the conference, and I was super nice about it. Actually, I should have clocked all hours at the convention each day, but instead did not account for hours for seminars that would help my boss. But for once, I had actually wanted to attend. The request was denied, and I was told industry conferences are enriching activities. We pay for admission, but they're on your own time. This took 2 weeks to resolve, but ended with me essentially saying, look, I'll still work for you because I love what I do. However, if I don't get paid, I will never go to another one of these conferences again to get new ideas for you. I was immediately paid. I will spare similar smaller stories of that nature, but that slowly started to become the relationship between Kyle and I. When COVID hit, our locations were shut down, and for 3 weeks, we weren't able to do anything. Meanwhile, our clients were still paying for services, and because Kyle had recently moved to a new client payment portal that I hadn't been trained on yet, I wasn't able to help any clients get their money back. At one point, I messaged Kyle about going virtual and being able to still assist clients, and got a very angry text back, full of curses, that essentially said, look, you're not the boss, go screw yourself. And you had your chance to be the owner and turned it down. I'm in charge. We did eventually go virtual about a week later. The problem, of course, being that I would receive daily text/emails/calls from clients about their membership/builds, and there was nothing I could do to help them. It was at this point that I knew crap was hitting the fan. I needed to start doing something. So over the course of the next 2 months, I did a couple of things. Spent an inordinate amount of time studying the best business structures, communicated with all the other staff at my location about my intentions, continued to give 110% to my clients in a virtual capacity, built a website and social media presence from the ground up. I don't think Kyle was expecting any of this, and he probably didn't also realize that because I often had to do back-end stuff from home. I also had to do what was essentially a little black book of every client, their email addresses, and phone numbers. Act 5. Surgical strikes. When everything was ready, I waited very patiently, only the end of a service month. As I mentioned, all of our clients had monthly costs, and I didn't want to put anyone out of any part of their costs. On the last weekday of the month, I instructed the staff who would be helping clients that day to tell them to check their emails at the end of the day. At the end of the day, I sent out an email to all active and some non-active clients, as well as a texting service to text anybody. I launched our social media accounts, our website, and it even enlisted a very small amount of trusted clients to spread the word via social media once I gave them the signal. Within 15 minutes of everything, my phone was ringing off the hook. I had 50 plus emails in my inbox from different people, and my Facebook accounts were completely blowing up with local chatter. I also heard from many of these people that they were calling Kyle to cancel their service. We hosted a Zoom meeting for all concerned parties and essentially decided to take the weekend to clear up any confusion with the systems and start fresh and open our doors on Monday. Within an hour of everything, Carl sent out a text blast to every client that they would be shutting their doors effective immediately. At the start of COVID, we had roughly 50 active clients at the business. On my first day of business, I had signed up 75 active clients. Many inactive ones telling me, yeah, we stopped doing business with you guys because Carl was a kind of a douche. Which is really important to keep in mind here is that I never wanted to, nor cared to be, a business owner. I was very happy working for somebody else as long as I wasn't treated like poop. Had Carl treated me even remotely better, the location would have continued to thrive and be a staple in our local community. Carl chose to be a douche to try and get quick money and cheat people, and Carl lost out. We've been in business now almost 2 years, have nearly tripled Carl's active numbers, and continued to be a staple in our community. And the third post by user /chuckitbuckit. UPS smashed a nearly new MacBook that I sent with them. I asked them nicely to pay me back for it, and they asked about it, blaming me, blaming my packaging, saying it was impossible they damaged it, etc. I was able to prove my packaging was flawless and get a statement from the Apple shop that I took it to say it was damage caused by being dropped/thrown. I could also prove it worked when I sent it. They weren't interested and messed me about for weeks. Sent me from pillar to post, even threatening to make me pay interest on customs charges, which I wasn't liable for, as a laptop was smashed on arrival and thus worthless at import. I took it to the small claims. They hired a lawyer who sent me letters saying that they contested it and would go for full fees, etc. if I lost. I went for it anyway. I did law stuff in university, so I knew the basics, and I thought my case was pretty clear cut. I won. I won my cost back, plus extra, plus interest. They ignored the court order and did not pay. Now, this laptop was originally being sent to my beloved mother-in-law. She asked me to help her with the problem at UPS, as they were seriously harassing her for the custom fees. However, very unexpectedly, before I could resolve it, she passed away. It was the last thing she ever asked me to do for her. I love that woman more than pretty much any human on this planet. She was my mother, my best friend, and my mentor. Taking down UPS was not my personal vendetta. I researched my options. I could have taken the usual, more conservative, legal routes to reclaim my money. But no, screw them. I don't care about the money anymore. I want revenge. I want drama. I want karmic justice. I went to the High Court. I got a writ of control. I, of course, added on more fees and more interest. I then hired the most aggressive bailiff firm in London. I trusted that the crappy process and attitude of UPS to mean that they would ignore the letters and eventually actually get a visit. They did. The bailiffs rock up at UPS headquarters and explain the situation. UPS refused to pay, so the bailiffs started listing goods. Security tried to make them leave. The office manager tries to bully them out. Obviously, no craps are given by the bailiffs and they crack on with their jobs. I wasn't allowed the body cam footage, but they did send me a detailed report. Calls were then made to the accounts manager, who arrived in a hurry. As no payment was forthcoming from them, the agent again explained the removal process and costs involved, and called the office for approval to begin removals. The agent began to seize assets. The finance director then arrived on the scene. He was not at all happy about the attendance, but ultimately agreed to pay a voluntary payment in full from his personal account in order to stop the removal. I know it's a drop in the ocean to UPS, but I got more than double what I originally asked for to replace the laptop. They would have had to pay even more on top in fees to the bailiffs. I reckon it cost them at least 3 times more than the original claim in the end. But mostly I just enjoy the mental image of the flustered finance director and his impotent rage, having to pay his own money to stop the heavies taking desktop lap computers and fancy pot plants and things out of their swanky head office lobby. Whew, that was tough to read. And the fourth post by user /anon-cant-quit. I worked for a company for just under 5 years. The company I worked for existed for an additional 10 years prior to me. While I worked at this company, it ballooned to be the #1 provider in the region for its unique service, with about 75% of the market. It was a small business of about 15 employees. I loved my job and the skills I learned while working there were quite valuable. I loved my team and the clients we provided services for. My twice yearly reviews with the owner were always 10 out of 10 with no recommendations for improvement. I was exceptional at my job in every way. I handled company operations, HR/payroll, customer service, marketing, employee management, schedules, employee and client training, and many other things at this company. I was also able to step in and do any of my teammates' jobs if they were out sick or on vacation. The owner of the company was giving a bonus late summer last year, and mine, while being more than previous years, was notably less than my teammates. I asked the owner, are the bonuses related to performance, and if so, what could I have done to earn more? Owner replied, the bonuses are not performance related, and you are just more replaceable than the others. Oh, okay, I replied, and proceeded to process each of the bonuses, then went to lunch. I called my spouse to gain wisdom and advice. I was pretty lit but didn't want to make a rash decision. My spouse is very intelligent, and, while they are not a fortune teller, they have an ability to foresee various responses and all the potential outcomes. They are business-wise and have been on the executive team of a large company for the past 21 years, while also serving on several community boards and business advisory boards. We decided together to continue forward with our scheduled vacation and use the time away to calm our minds, relax, have fun, and to also determine the best course of action for me. We were leaving after work one more day, so I worked like all was normal the rest of the day and the following day, then left on vacation. While away, we discussed several scenarios, the potential outcomes, consulted with a business advisor and a business attorney. With all the advice I received, I determined that upon my return from vacation, I would resign from my role with a 2-week notice. However, in a fit of rage, I was immediately terminated by our owner, which was one of the scenarios we thought would happen. So I was prepared for the owner's poor reaction. During the next couple of weeks, I created and opened a competing business, offering similar services. However, I offered more customizable options with higher quality service and results. I knew our clients wanted these options and had proposed said options several times at old workplace, but was never green-lighted to implement the changes for no reason other than the owner didn't come up with the idea, so it was a stupid idea. I also maintained communications with a few people from my old team. My old team did not relay this day-to-day happening at my previous workplace, and I never asked about the company. However, they would vent to me on occasion. I would listen without comment. I knew service, quality, and the work environment in general suffered since my departure. Morale went down and clients were less satisfied. I also read the Google and Facebook reviews for the old company. Yikes! Additionally, 2 full-time and 1 part-time person was hired to fill my role, and a portion of my responsibilities, like HR and payroll, were filled by outside companies. I quickly built up my business and within 3 months was able to hire several of my old teammates. They were able to jump in on day 1 with minimal training as they were the best employees at my old workplace. The quality of previous workplaces' offerings continued to fall, which sent additional business my way and quickly caused incoming work to be non-existent at my old workplace. My old workplace went from being the number 1 provider of unique services in my region to being nothing in a matter of months. My previous employer is now searching for gainful employment. I know this because over the weekend, the owner applied for a position at my spouse's company. Side note, I think my spouse's company should bring my previous employer in for an interview, but when they arrive, surprise! I'm the interviewer, and all I'll say is, how replaceable am I now? My spouse, rightfully so, has said no. Moral of the story, don't tell your employees they are replaceable, because they might create a competing business that is better than yours, while taking your best employees and your clients, which will leave you with no business to sell. When his whole retirement plan was to sell the business, and starting all over again by searching for employment under someone else. That post was marvelous. And the 5th post by user/meltdown, but like a bunch of the letters are numbers, so it's in the description if you want to know who it is. I was building an online training module at work that is intended to teach existing users how to work a new process. that has interactive elements, quizzes, segments to work through, a few sample scenarios, etc. Now, we'd recently got a new associate director who, from what I can tell, advanced through the company by throwing away other people under the bus. She gets promoted not for her own merits, but because at the end of the day, she has less mud sticking to her than other applicants. It's uncanny to the point that there simply had to be more to it than stupid office politics. I'll get to that in a bit. So, after I have the first draft of the module done, it gets sent out for the usual round of testing. And there are, of course, a couple things that need to be corrected. I build the module off the notes the subject matter experts leave me, and a few things inevitably get lost in translation. But this new associate director just rips it to shreds, complaining that it's completely incomprehensible. Needs to go into much greater detail, asking questions about nearly every individual mouse click in the sample scenarios, and overall stating that it's impossible to follow. The thing is, this module is intended for our finance department, for people who have a background in finance, and have already been trained on how to use our internal software. She is a training services associate director with a teaching background. The module isn't supposed to make sense to a former middle school social studies teacher. It's supposed to make sense to people with finance degrees. I push back and try explaining this to her in a million different ways, but she's having none of it. So I have to go back to the subject matter experts with her, 20 pages worth of criticism. And at first, they think I'm joking. I had to forward her email before they finally believed me. So for the next 2 weeks, we're going over every nuance, every readdressing, everything that was covered during the 3-week classroom training. How to set up the network drives, how to set up Outlook, including things as nuanced as if you don't know how to set up your email signature, click it. I mean really basic stuff that has nothing to do with what the module was originally supposed to teach. But now I had to include it all because the new associate director couldn't find the on switch if you stapled her finger to it. This wastes my time, subject matter experts' time, and the time spent re-recording all the voice work. If you've done voice work in the past, you know you never get it in one take. Wink wink. After it's all done, I send it back out for review and approval, and the associate director simply doesn't respond. A week passes. The finance director takes an interest in why this module is almost a month overdue. I go to forward the associate director's email again, except now I can't find it. Odd, seeing as how I have a hoarding problem when it comes to email. I check with one of the subject matter experts I was working with. He can't find it either. Turns out none of us can find it. It's gone. So I checked with a friend of mine in IT, who, after a little detective work, discovers that a week ago, someone did a compliance delete on the Exchange server. This is basically a seek and destroy for messages meeting certain criteria. In this case, a specific phrase she used in her email. I started digging through Outlook trying to find particular emails related to this that might be used to defend my actions. And they're all gone. Inbox, sent items, deleted items, every last one of them. Any email containing that particular phrase anywhere in it. This kind of thing is normally used by admins to mass delete spam or phishing emails from all users at once. Except in this case, someone apparently deleted emails that showed evidence of her awful decisions. My friend in IT can smell the juicy story a mile away and was very interested in seeing where this went. She recovered the deleted emails and I promptly saved them to a flash drive. For the next few days, every time I had an email with the associate director's name on it, even unrelated stuff, you never know how something might fit together, I saved a copy to the flash drive. I informed the subject matter experts to do the same, and we started building our offline evidence locker. I didn't want to blow the lid on it just yet. I wanted to see if my suspicions were correct. Maybe a lifetime of watching spy movies and cop dramas had corrupted my thinking. Maybe there was another explanation. Who knows? It could happen. I'm not God. I don't know everything. I'll play defense. So, after several weeks, in total trying to appease this associate director's unquenchable thirst for irrelevant details, and then getting ignored for a week, She finally publishes it and sends it to the finance director to approve, so it can go live. Woo! Except the module, which was supposed to be a 30-minute online course, now contained 3 hours of content and went down several irrelevant rabbit holes that had been deemed critical supporting information. As an analogy, imagine designing a training module to teach a nurse how to enter some CPT codes, and being told you have to teach them how to read too, because he might not know what words are. That's how much BS was rammed into this thing. And the finance director, of course, hated it, and was surprised that such a rambling mess of a module would come from me of all people. So he called a meeting with me and the associate director on Tuesday to get some answers. And sure enough, she immediately tried to distance herself from it, trying to paint it as if she made a couple suggestions, and I clearly went way overboard. How I must have sent her a different version that she approved and switched them afterwards. That's not even possible. It would get thrown back into a draft status. She kept trying to talk over me as if I voiced my defense, and to his credit, the finance director finally just muted her so I could speak. And boy, did I. I explained everything. I shared my screen, popped in my flash drive, and opened the copies of the emails that had supposedly been deleted. Every email exchange where she complained about the material. I pushed back, and she flat out ordered me to build a module in the way I did. She abruptly left the meeting and went offline. The finance director asked if I could send him a copy of all relevant files, and as I did, so I told him they might not be there later, and then explained what I learned about someone IT about the compliance delete. He assures me he'll look into it, and the crap immediately hit the fan. The associate director never logged back on. There was a massive internal audit where people from my previous departments were asked to provide statements. Leadership trying to keep it hush-hush, but you can't just keep something that big under wraps. I don't know the specific whats and hows, but the associate director and one of the IT managers had both left the company to pursue the next stage of their careers, and we sincerely wish them the best. I don't really do the social media thing, but over the next few days, as the rumor mill did what the rumor mills do, I heard their crap absolutely blew up, and it came out that the associate director and the IT manager were dating. Now this all went down about a month ago. When I wrote this post, I thought to check online court records. Both are now facing divorces, filed by their respective spouses. So yeah, this involved my direct leadership. In IT's leadership, and the entire IT department is getting a shakedown by information security to determine if there were any other leaks. I spent some time reflecting on why this whole series of events happened, and my best guess is she wanted to make a grand entrance by spearheading this masterwork training module that covered every possible scenario and contained any and all information anyone could possibly want. Then, as she started to realize how wasteful, rambling, and unnecessary it was, she realized that her grand entrance would be a grand faceplant. So she tried to erase the evidence and pin all the nonsense on me to save face, but inadvertently set in motion the events that would expose her little arrangement with the IT manager, taking it up the butt in order to cover her butt, I guess. That was long, exhausting, and confusing, but we finally got it. I really hope you enjoyed that 30-minute episode, and if you did, I would greatly appreciate you like and subscribe. To listen to this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or on many more platforms, or to visit any of my socials, click the link in the description, and please feel free to send me an audio message or leave a comment. It's been a pleasure. Goodbye!